Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky's Health for a Change webinar, High Five for Health, Summer Habits for School Success. I'm Allie Wells, the Communications Associate at the Foundation. We planned this webinar today with the Kentucky Department of Education, our partners on the High Five for Health campaign. With us today is Todd Crumbacker, the Director of Food and Nutrition Services for Bullitt County Schools, Latoya Drake, a Program Coordinator at the Kentucky Nutrition Education Program, Dr. Molly O'Rourke, a pediatrician for the Primary Care Centers of Eastern Kentucky, and Marcy Timmerman, Executive Director of Mental Health America of Kentucky and a Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky Community Advisory Council member. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. We've enabled the live transcript feature on this webinar. You can control whether you see the closed captioning by selecting live transcript at the bottom of your screen. We'll also invite any questions you may have, just type them in the chat box and we'll address them during the Q&A portion of this program. First, a little bit about us. The Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization focused on healthcare access, tobacco use reduction, obesity and diabetes mitigation and prevention, and child health, specifically preventing and mitigating adverse childhood experiences. Much of what we do is in the policy realm, whether on the state level, local level, or even school or organizational level. A few weeks ago, the Foundation and the Kentucky Department of Education launched the High Five for Health campaign, which is all about habits that kids can form over the summer to improve their health. What we are suggesting is prioritize physical activity, practice healthy eating, monitor chronic conditions such as asthma, obesity, and diabetes, stay up to date on vaccines, and manage stress and emotions. So why is this important? Aside from those obvious health benefits, these 5 things can also lead students to be more successful in the classroom. Statistics show that healthy children get better grades and attend school more often. Poor nutrition, lack of physical activity, lack of adequate sleep, and an overall unhealthy lifestyle can lead to poor academic achievement. Academic success is an excellent indicator for the overall well-being of children, and academic success is a primary predictor and determinant of adult health outcomes. What's important to remember is that doing these things will help your child, your whole family. Being healthy can be fun and it doesn't have to be expensive. There are many things you and your children can try that are free, require materials that you probably already have in your house, or at a low cost. Now, there are only so many details you can fit into a 15 or 30-second video, so that's why we're here today. We're going to dig a little deeper into each of these categories. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our first 2 presenters, Todd Crumbacker and Latoya Drake. They will be sharing their expertise about physical activity and healthy eating.
Thank you, Allie. Good morning to you all. My name is Todd Crumbacker. I'm currently the School Nutrition Director for Bullitt County Public Schools. I've been in this role for 2 years. Prior to this role, I am a former health and physical education teacher for 12 years in the public school setting. And so just delighted to be here today to talk about these 2 healthy habits that we certainly want to encourage and educate our children on. And the first 2 are nutrition and physical activity. Allie, if you want to go to the next slide. It's very important, I feel like, in my former role as an educator to help kids to understand their overall health, and what better than to provide a visual aid for them to do that. Helps them to make connections into their everyday decisions. This is a concept called the health triangle that, whether I talk kindergartners or 12th graders, this is a concept that I wanted to always introduce to my students and help them to understand that they are making decisions, thousands of decisions every day that are impacting their health. And even a 6-year-old, a kindergarten student can understand these 3 areas of health if we invest some time into their education, and they're making decisions every day that are impacting their physical health, their mental and emotional health, and their social health. So as we get into these next few slides, we're just going to be making connections into each area of health, and understanding that every decision we make is going to impact this health triangle some form or fashion. It's very important that we give attention to each area of our health every day. You can see our physical health. This really focuses on how well the body functions. If you're talking to an elementary age student, we just replace that word function with works. How does our body work? And exercise and physical activity, getting adequate sleep and rest, the foods that we put into our body, personal hygiene, our decisions on whether or not we put drugs in our body. These are all things that are going to impact how our body works. Mental and emotional health obviously has to do with our thoughts and our feelings. A lot of times when you talk to young children about this concept, they think mental and emotional health has to do with your academics and has to do with how smart you are or how studious you are, and trying to get them to understand that no, that's not the case. Mental and emotional health is about your thoughts and your feelings and how you feel about yourself and how do you cope with stress in your life, and how do you handle disappointment. Are you able to express emotions in healthy, positive ways? And that other area of health that we like to focus on is social health. And this has to do with our relationships of folks in our social network. When you're dealing with K through 12 students, not only is this your parents or your guardians or your immediate family member, but this is also your classmates. These are your teachers. These are your coaches. These are your counselors, your bus drivers, your cafeteria staff that you interact with daily at school. So anybody that's in that social network for that student, we want them to understand that you're making decisions every day that are impacting this area of your social health. And so embedded into this presentation, if you click on that link, Allie, you don't have to, but if you share these slides out, that is just a health triangle checklist that could be easily understood by a kindergartner or a 12th grader. There are some parent discussion questions in there. And so if you have a kiddo and you want to start the conversation of understanding the health triangle, that checklist is a great way to do just that. Allie, you can move on. So healthy habit number one is physical activity. We obviously want to encourage students to get as much physical activity in their day as they can. The goal is 60 minutes every day, and that is moderate to vigorous physical activity. When I talk to children about this, moderate to vigorous physical activity, we're talking about physical activity that's going to make them sweat, physical activity that's going to make them breathe heavier than normal, physical activity that's going to increase that heart rate. So those are three kind of signals that the body will give you if you're engaged in moderate to physical activity. And you can see the physical activity pyramid here. The bottom portion where there's the greatest amount of area in that pyramid, those are activities that we want students to just be mindful of every day. We've always heard, well, if you take the stairs instead of the elevator, or park your further out from the grocery store and walk. So anything that they can do to get some additional steps in their day, we obviously want to encourage them to do that. You can see there about the middle of the pyramid, 3 to 5 days a week, aerobic exercises, just physical activity that's going to increase that heart rate dramatically. Recreational activity, a lot of this is going to be the sports that they participate in. And then as you move up that pyramid 2 to 3 times a week, getting into some more leisure type activities, strength and flexibility. If you understand those components of health related fitness, all of those are included here in this pyramid. And obviously we want to educate our students and children in our communities to limit their screen time, to limit how often you're sitting on the couch watching TV or playing video games. And so also embedded into this slide, if you wanted to continue that conversation with your students or your children, that there is an activity assessment there that just provides some different types of physical activity, and whether or not it's physical or whether it's sedentary. And sedentary activity, just activity where you're sitting still, you're not moving around a whole lot, you're not increasing the heart rate, you're not going to sweat, you're not going to breathe heavier than normal. So getting kids to understand that physical activity is going to be anything that's going to require energy output from the body. A lot of times they think physical activity has to be structured, it has to be routine. Well, I got to go to the gym. I got to do these exercises. And that's not the case. We just want kiddos to get their bodies moving. Allie, if you want to move on. How does physical activity impact your health triangle? You can see this poster. The next few slides will hit on most of these areas, but most of the benefits that you see there are going to be physical benefits that impact that physical area of health and how the body works. But you can see there near the bottom left there, you got reduces anxiety, increases confidence. This is going to be impacting your mental and emotional health. There on the right side, about middle of the way down, improving your mood, reducing stress, improving your body image. Again, these are mental and emotional benefits to being physically active every day. Allie, you can move on. And then these are just some physical benefits of physical activity. Obviously, if you're speaking to a kindergartner, you're going to focus more on the simplistic benefits, the ones that are a little bit easier to understand. Which, physical activity leads to, having a stronger heart and developing that heart muscle, and leads to stronger lungs and stronger muscles. Most of your young kids can really understand that. As you move up into your high school age group, you can really look at reducing the risk of some cancers, and reduces your risk of heart attack and stroke. And you can really get into the reasoning behind why that is the way it is. But these are just some physical benefits of being physically active. 60 minutes every day. Allie, you can move on. Our next slide is going to be mental and emotional benefits. And you can see a more extensive list here. And these are things that I truly feel like kindergarten through 12th grade students can certainly understand. And obviously, when conversating with children, be very intentional about making sure kids understand that mental and emotional benefits. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with your academics. However, being physically active, as you can see there at the very, very bottom, it does stimulate the brain. And so the likelihood of you having greater success in the classroom becomes much greater, because you are stimulating the brain. You're getting oxygen, blood flow throughout the body, which just improves your attention span. And so there are some benefits that can certainly lead to improving your academics. And our next slide is social benefits. And a lot of this comes from team sports, but it doesn't necessarily have to come from team sports. But again, getting students to understand their social health, this just has to do with with how you interact with others, whether you're at recess and you're on the playground with your classmates, or whether you're playing outside with your brothers and sisters or your siblings, or maybe you're just in the yard with your mom or dad, or your parents and guardians. Connecting with others through physical activity leads to some fantastic social benefits that really give our kids and children in our communities a sense of belonging. They give them this this thought that they belong to this team, or they belong to this group, and it's a great way for kids to connect and build relationships. Our next healthy habit is just that of nutrition, and I know Latoya is going to speak more on this, but as a former educator, it's just getting kids to understand that nutrition is just, what are you putting into your body, food and beverages, and how does that work? How does that work in your body? How does that improve to a healthier heart, or how does that improve any area of your health for that matter? But getting kids to understand that there are certain things that are found in foods that we need, and we call these things nutrients, and each nutrient does something different for the body. Allie, you can move on. You can see this scenario that I always share with kids is getting them to understand that nutrition is a lot like putting fuel in a car. And if you have a car that runs out of fuel and it's on empty, it's going to break down. It's not going to work the way it's supposed to. Allie, you can move on. And if we're not putting adequate food in our body, or healthy foods, we end up feeling like that car that's dead on the side of the road and the engine is smoking. And so, yeah, that one there. And There you go, Allie, keep moving. And so just getting kids to understand that healthy food is nutritious, healthy food has more nutrients, and trying to make that connection that nutrients are those substances that are found in food that the body needs to grow and develop properly. And with that, Allie, we can move on to the next slide, which I believe is my last one. And all of these nutrients are found in the foods that we eat. As a former educator, this was a simple way that I used to educate our children on understanding those nutrients, or at least being able to identify them. And that's Fanny can't play violin, much worse. And that represents the fats, the carbohydrates, the protein, vitamins, minerals, and water. And just getting them to understand that foods that you put in your body contain these nutrients, and each nutrient does something different for your body that we need to grow and we need to develop. Actually, Allie, I think there's one more slide there. And that is this one here. You know, if we put healthy food in our body, it gives us energy. It helps us to be able to fulfill those daily commitments in our life with high energy. And whether you got a kindergartner or a 12th grader, these are simple images that they can and visuals that they can understand, and just kind of help them comprehend the value that that nutrition plays in our lives. And then with that, the last slide is just the pyramid and the plate, which are two visuals that we use in those health and physical education classrooms to help our children better understand the value of nutrition. And with that, LaToya is going to be your next presenter.
Hey, y'all. Good morning. I'm LaToya Drake. I'm program coordinator with Kentucky's Nutrition Education Program, and we are administered by the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. And we always like to say, or I don't like to say, that Extension is Kentucky's best kept secret, and our services are secret, it seems. And that's not acceptable. I grew up in Barron County, Kentucky, and I didn't really hear about Extension, what Extension had to offer. And we have a vast amount of resources that can help folks eat better and do better. So I want to talk to you guys about the NEP program and strategies that we can encourage children to eat better and have healthier habits, as well as give some resources that we can provide with NEP and cooperative extension. So Kentucky's NEP is the Kentucky Nutrition Education Program encompasses two separate USDA programs, and that is the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, or FNEP, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP-Ed. Both of these programs are administered by the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service in order to show limited resource families with young children and SNAP eligible folks how to plan nutritious meals on a limited budget, acquire safe food handling practices, improve food preparation skills, and change behavior necessary to have a healthy lifestyle. And I'm not ashamed to say I'm a product of folks who benefited from EBT services and food stamps. And I think nutrition education program services are super important to encourage folks to use those resources to have a healthier diet. And we teach folks, with the NEP and the University of Kentucky, we use a lot of the My Plate visual display to encourage folks to eat in a healthy pattern. So we do this with nutrition education classes, cooking classes, and we provide resources and supports for folks to eat better. And we see the My Plate visual display here. And we want to encourage folks to have half of their plate to be fruits and vegetables. So we don't want to encourage folks to eat less food. We want to encourage them to eat more of the good stuff. And I really love this simple representation because it just encourages folks to focus on whole fruits, vary their veggies, make half of their grains whole grains, vary your protein foods, and to move to low-fat or fat-free dairy products or fortified non-dairy products if dairy is not your thing. All right, why are our efforts so important? Why do we need to encourage folks to know basic nutrition? Our future depends on it. Kentucky adults keep getting larger, reaching an all-time high for the number of obese adults in the state at 36.6%, ranking it 5th in the nation. It is important that we start early because our children are also becoming larger. and struggling with obesity. Kentucky ranks #1 in the nation for childhood obesity, with 23.8% of our children being obese. So it's really important that we really take efforts to make change with this. Okay, so good nutrition is essential to keeping current and future generations healthy across our lifespans, right? A healthy diet helps children to grow and develop properly and reduces their risk to chronic disease. Folks who eat a healthy diet live longer. They have lower risk of obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancers. Children who receive guidance on healthy foods tended to be more likely to eat more fruits and vegetables as adults. So it's important that we encourage children early on. I read somewhere when I was getting my master's in nutrition that it takes about 15 exposures to a food for children to appreciate it and to like it. So it's important that we continue to expose our children to healthy foods. So how can we encourage children to develop healthy habits and maintain a healthy weight? Let's talk about some strategies, okay? We can provide plenty of vegetables and fruits and whole grains, make those available in the house according to your budget, whatever that is. You can include low fat or non-fat milk or dairy products, including cheese and yogurt, or those non-dairy fortified products that might serve that same purpose. You can choose lean meats, poultry, fish, lentils, and beans for protein. And you can encourage your family to drink lots of water. You can limit sugary drinks and limit the consumption of sugar and saturated fat. Something else that's also important is role modeling. And role modeling works best when you eat the same foods as the children and enthusiastically talk about enjoying the food you're eating, right? So have a good experience, a family meal, and role model these foods. And you can do that by talking about the rewards of eating healthy foods. For example, I like blueberries in the summer. They taste good and are so refreshing, right? Or bananas are my favorite. They give me lots of energy. You can smile and show enjoyment when you're eating healthy foods and offering them to children, right? Don't worry if your children don't follow your lead the first time. Children may need to see something like we talked about several times before they copy it. Avoid negative comments about food, such as I don't like corn or spinach smells funny. Negative comments might stop children from trying new foods or eating foods they already like, right? Just because you don't like Brussels sprouts, they might like Brussels sprouts. So you might not want to, change their opinion, right? With your comments. If you cannot eat something without showing your children that you dislike it, still put it on your plate, but don't mention that you're not eating it. Just put a little bit on your plate, right? Avoid eating less healthy foods such as candy and chips and soda in front of children. If you want to eat these foods, do it when you're not around the children. And that's not necessarily realistic, but we want to limit the amount of unhealthy foods that we're eating around children, right? And offering children. Explain why you enjoy eating the healthy foods the children are eating and encourage children to try healthy foods. You can say, do you want to try peas? They're so good for you. I enjoy peas. But don't pressure children to eat. Just encourage them to try it, to take a bite. All right. So what are some additional things we can do to encourage children to maintain a healthy weight? Well, we can limit calorie-rich temptations. So just keep the good stuff in the house and don't keep as much of the things that are high in saturated fat and sugar and those things. Encourage children to stay active and stay active, right? We want to encourage them to be physically active for all of those reasons that Todd mentioned before. We want to reduce sedentary time and ensure adequate sleep. So how can we help you at the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service with our nutrition education program? So we have nutrition educators across the state in all 120 counties, right? And they're like our NEP assistants or extension agents, and they focus on encouraging people to eat better for less. And we do this as an extension by having free nutrition education and cooking classes and programs like food preservation programs that are also free. We have an abundance of resources, including publications, recipe cards, our popular food and nutrition calendar, and more. And we have creative content and education via social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And we have a super user-friendly website with plenty of educational resources like recipes, how-to videos, and farmers market and food bank search engine. And that's at planeatmove.com. And I wanted to show you one of our resources that we do have, because I don't want Extension and NEP to be Kentucky's best kept secret any longer. It's important that folks know that these resources are out there and that we're there to help and support them so that we can have a better future, right? So check this out, and thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Now we're going to hear from Dr. O'Rourke about the importance of staying up to date on vaccinations and monitoring chronic conditions.
I ask you all be a bit patient with me. I had to take over for another physician today, so this is a last minute change. So staying up on our vaccines and monitoring our chronic conditions. The first thing for us as pediatricians, prevention is very much a key that we worry about. With this, we typically do it through well child checks, which a lot of parents believe is more about the vaccines, but really for us, it's looking at everything. We're monitoring developmental milestones starting at birth through 18 years of age. We do our vaccinations for preventable illnesses. This is our immunization schedule that we all tend to follow through the CDC, and it's a link that anyone can go to, as well as it gives you a link to the catch-up schedule if anyone gets behind, which we've seen quite a bit of in the past 2 years due to people not coming in because of COVID. We also are assessing growth throughout their life. We use growth charts with growth parameters that are based on age, biological sex, gestational age, and genetic syndromes that they might have been born with. We also do provide age-based anticipatory guidance. This is a proactive counseling to address physical, emotional, psychological, and developmental changes based on their age. We try to do that with every visit. With COVID vaccines, according to, I know this is a big hot topic for everybody, vaccines have become or are always a concern for many different reasons. But with the COVID vaccine, according to the Kentucky COVID-19 dashboard, last updated at the end of last month, we currently have a vaccination rate at about 23% between the 5 to 11-year-old age. age range. There's a 35% nationwide vaccination rate right now. These kids are actually only receiving a third of the dose that adults receive, but they are having a very good efficacy with this vaccine. Then you can see the rates at 12 to 15 and 16 to 17, close to about 50%. Nationwide, it's actually at about 69%, according to the CDC. Of course, hot topic with it is also the side effects. You see a lot of soreness and redness at the site, headaches, fatigue and fever. There are no cases of myocarditis, according to the CDC, with the trials at the age 5 to 11 group. I know a lot of people worry about that. And there's no evidence at any age group that the COVID vaccine is actually causing fertility or puberty problems. And the last time I checked, according to the CDC COVID-19 vaccine safety technical work group, the rate of myocarditis in the once it got out of trials was much lower in the 5 to 11-year-old group. So we are seeing much lower side effects with the 5 to 11-year-old group compared to the 12 to 15-year-old groups. And there's no statistical safety signals after over 700,000 vaccines given in the 5 to 11-year-old range. So this is showing to be a very good vaccine, very low side effects that I know everyone worries about. Can I have the next slide? This is our well child checks. We see them very, very often in the first year of age. You can see all of our numbers. Until we get up to age 3, we see them frequently throughout the year. And then after age 3, it's every year. Vaccines are typically scheduled at 2, 4, 6 months, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, then 4, 11, and 16. But of course, we also want to do our flu vaccine every year if possible. But parents tend to think that vaccines are our only point of having a checkup, and we really have to get away from this, because of everything we're doing with these well child checks. They're much more important than just getting your vaccines. It looks at all of the health of the child, mental, physical, developmental, not just whether or not you're going to get a vaccine for tetanus or COVID. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we look at is looking for chronic conditions. We are screening these children from birth, looking for chronic conditions, things that we can either prevent or treat early on to make sure that the progression is not is less. Currently, according to the CDC, we have 40% of school age children and adolescents with one chronic health condition. About 13% or so tend to have asthma. And this is that kind of varies based on the age group that you're talking about. And asthma can cause severe morbidity and mortality if it's not controlled appropriately. And this is something we can address with every well child check. It would, depending on the type of asthma the child has, how severe it is, it can affect their quality of life for any young child or any adolescent. And controlling it can actually make a great impact. And it has to be addressed at least every year. Currently, we have about over 3,000 children in Kentucky with diabetes. We are seeing about 10 years ago, it really was only type 1. So it was more of an autoimmune issue. And now we are really seeing a lot more type 2. And of course, this has a lot to do with our obesity rates and our lack of nutrition. And I know LaToya actually talked a lot about this earlier, but specifically in our age group of 10 to 17, we are first in the country for our obesity rates, which is quite shocking and frustrating for any pediatrician. So monitoring these chronic conditions, we can monitor this every year. We can look for them, we can monitor them, we can help to control them. And this really needs to be done with each well child check. The summer is a great time for parents to bring their kids in between activities and vacations. We can get this out of the way for the parents. It's hard to bring them in. They don't want to on a nice summer day, but we can bring them in and have them reassessed. We can make sure that we're staying up on top of these, on their medications, on their controls, and seeing their specialists in many ways. The medical advancements, I've been a doctor for 12 years, almost 13 years now. And there have been significant advancements in these chronic conditions just in my short time as a doctor. And we are able to help them control things, treat things that we couldn't treat 10, 15 years ago, using things like asthma action plans, keep the asthma under control, keep them healthier, keep them more active because they're not out of breath. Using spacers with their inhalers have made a huge impact. With kids who do have diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2, monitoring that glucose, making sure that they're healthy, make sure that they're recognizing which foods affect them more, making sure that it does stay under control, and see if they do need to go to their specialist more often for a spike such as during puberty. And then also in the light of the last 2 years, recent years, our mental health has become a huge factor. It continues to be a major concern for all pediatricians across the country. We're in a crisis. Our kids are struggling. Social isolation of these children has led to various mental health issues, especially based on age. We see a difference in kids under 5, kids that are haven't gone to kindergarten yet. They haven't gone to school and they're 6 and 7 years old. And then the teenagers, they need that social interaction. They're socially isolated. And so we're seeing a huge issue, and this can be assessed with these checkups. We need to get these kids in here. But, overall, whether you're talking about physical, mental, psychological health, the control of these chronic conditions really will lead to improved health. Mental, physical, can be helped by just getting them in here, getting that checkup, getting their vaccines to stay healthy, and even talk about diet, exercise, all the things we try to do every visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Rourke. Thank you for stepping in with us today to help us out. Now, last but not least, we're going to hear from Marcy Timmerman about how and why it's important that kids take care of their mental health and learn how to manage their stress and emotions.
Yes, and I'm sorry I don't have any amazing slides, but thank you for having me today. As you all have already heard, mental health is part of physical health, right? It is not something that should be separated. And I have to say, it's amazing to me that all 3 of you mentioned mental health aspects. Years ago, that wouldn't have happened. So for someone who works in destigmatizing and working on advocacy, to change the way we think about mental health, it really means a lot to hear it already from other providers who aren't just talking about us. So our youth actually are unfortunately in a emergency state with mental health. We are not seeing quite an increase in suicides yet, which is good. We want to keep that continuing to stay a very low or 0 number would be awesome. But unfortunately, that social isolation that came with COVID has a lot of impacts on social emotional life that we have, and our kids are suffering, right? And we can really fix that though, right? Like we can integrate that. And I really want to talk about how important that is. I think something that came through during COVID stronger than anything was the fact that a lot of people don't know how to handle their emotions or how to label their emotions. And when adults don't know that, kids can't learn from us at home, right? Modeling behavior and modeling good mental health is really important in helping your own kid achieve that mental wellness and kind of modeling it, right? We're gonna all have bad days, right? Like I'm not saying be perfect, but try to model those skills that you have learned with your children. And I'm talking about things like just labeling this. I'm anxious about this. I'm angry about this. When you have smaller children at home and you start labeling emotions, that helps reinforce some of the social emotional learning they get in their daycare or their children's school. So keep that in mind, that even just labeling things is really important. Summer stress and emotions. So it is summertime. A lot of students are out of school. Not everybody, but most are out of school right now. So what is going on? Well, they might be isolated. They might be playing a lot of video games, right? They may hopefully be outside enjoying some pool time and things like that as well. But there's a lot of extra stress that comes with being away from friends. So connecting kids to other groups is really important, and keeping them connected to you as well. So as you go out on summer vacations or staycations or work at home some, or, take that weekend time, maybe focus a little bit more on having a conversation with your child. So those are moments where you can connect with each other. And I saw a meme yesterday that made me laugh because I was like, it's so appropriate. A mom had made a meme out of the fact that she didn't realize her son was talking to her about Minecraft in order to connect with her. He wasn't really worried about Minecraft, right? He was using Minecraft, which is a video game for those of you who aren't familiar. He was using that as a way to have a conversation with her. And I think we kind of dismiss some of those conversations sometimes about their interests, but remember, we've got to take that time to listen. And if we do things together that are physical activity, like taking a hike, like taking a swimming day, right? Take some of that time to connect with each other. That's really important. And our youth are in a mental health crisis right now, unfortunately. We had the Surgeon General actually put out a report in December telling us that kids ages 12 to 18 are seeing unprecedented moments of stress. And how do we manage that stress? Well, some of that is connecting and giving them the tools to connect with other people as well, as often as we can and as safely as we can. I think social emotional learning gets a bad rep a lot of times, but I really want to reframe how people think about it. Social emotional learning is about labeling emotions and learning how to deal with them. We all kind of already want that for each other. Right? I think we want that for ourselves. We want that for our youth. We want that for our kids, right? We want them to have a successful life. And honestly, the soft skills they talk about as business skills, a lot of them are social emotional learning. Understanding how other people think, getting some empathy for other people, being able to deal with, team stress in a work environment, right? Just having those skills. And it's really hard to do that if you haven't learned that in your youth. You can overcome it as an adult, and I have lots of resources for adults as well as youth at Mental Health America of Kentucky. I'm happy to help you connect with those, but also the foundation's goal here is to connect you with more resources, and they've got some amazing links as well. So some people are asking me, like, how do I strengthen my child's social emotional learning skills? How do I build on what they've learned at school? Because a lot of our schools do have some kind of program, whether it's a suicide prevention program that kind of goes all the ages, or whether it's specifically an SEL. And I really love the resource that the foundation brought, which lays out the word PATH, P-A-T-H. So there are many ways you can help your kids. This is how you do it. Pause is the first word. Encourage your child not to act on feelings right away. It might help to count to 100 or say the alphabet backwards. Do something, teach them how to pause. How many of you have that lack of filter between thought and mouth, right? I do it too. I react sometimes too quickly to something. Taking that pause moment is really healthy for you and for your interactions with other people. Acknowledge feelings. So helping your child identify what emotion they're feeling and telling them it's okay to feel that way. I have to tell you all, I should have put in a slide of the feelings wheel. If you have never looked it up, Google feelings wheel. It is a big, giant wheel that is multicolored in rainbow. And please make sure that you check it out, because it has emotions I wouldn't have thought of to connect to one another. But at its core, it has the basics like angry, right? Happy, sad, those kinds of things that we're pretty familiar with as adults. And then it goes out and it branches out and talks about, like, I'm not angry, I'm frustrated, right? And things like that. It helps you really kind of narrow down how you're actually feeling. And as an adult, you need that. And as a youth or teen or child, you probably need that as well. And there are different versions of it for different ages. The T in PATH is think. Talk through ways they can make themselves feel better. That's really important. To give them options and let them kind of lead that conversation of what are the solutions here? What can we do about that? What ways should you react? What ways should you respond? if you've got that time, that's really helpful. And then take action on what they decide in step 3 and help them feel better. So whatever their situation might be, trying to help them and support them in taking that action. So again, that's PATH, P-A-T-H. It's an excellent process. So some ideas for kind of summertime connection. I love the list that they have here. They were like, let's listen to music together. Let's dance together in the kitchen. And what I love about that actually is to build on LaToya and Todd and Dr. O'Rourke's pieces actually, is if you're making a healthy meal together and it takes you 10 minutes for something to sit through the oven, we can dance for 10 minutes and get 10 of that 60 minutes of activity in. And you're also connecting with your child on a mental health level. So that one activity that might take you half an hour, right, can do a lot of things, right? Pack a lot of things into one time. I know we parents are busy. And I know that we as community members are busy, right? But being able to connect with a youth or a child for just a little bit, taking that moment to start running through the sprinkler, right? That kind of thing can be really good for your mental health, to give you a break as well as theirs. And again, builds that connection. Let's see here. Walking in the grass barefoot, things like that that you don't do on a regular basis. Think about those for the summertime. It's a little late for garden planting, but if you wanted to plant some few plants together and tend those, that's a really fun activity that my son decided to adopt during the pandemic. And it really worked for us as a family. We all got involved in his gardening skills, and he made some YouTube videos and earned some other skills that way and felt really proud of himself being able to not only grow, but also learn these technology skills. So that's something to think about doing for yourselves. I did want to bring a couple of facts from the Lieutenant Governor met with a bunch of youth on mental health during fall and summer of 2021. And our youth really said they are feeling like they are stressed out. They're feeling disconnected. And yes, that was towards kind of the end of the pandemic closures of schools. So some of them were virtual, some of them were hybrid, some of them were still at home all the time, some were at school in person. So they talked to a random group of kids along all of those. And these kids just told us they don't know where to get help. They don't know where to go. So let me give you a couple of solutions. First, the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky. Another is Mental Health America of Kentucky and Mental Health America National. NAMI National also is doing a lot at NAMI.org. NAMI Kentucky has some other programs if someone you know has a severe mental illness especially. So those are just a few that I can rattle off, but I'm always happy to help people connect them with the resources they need for whatever problem you're facing. So if you need us, I will put my contact information in the chat for you. I'm happy to connect, because that not knowing where to get it, it's not cool. But Dr. O'Rourke did tell us, right, that we can go to the pediatrician. And yes, I will put everything in the chat. But we can also start with the pediatrician's office, right? They know where to go in your local area as well for more support on the ground. One of the big reasons that kids feel like they are not accessing mental health services, stigma. And stigma amongst their parents, their grandparents, their peers, social media, places like that, or where they're getting these negative and discriminatory feelings about mental wellness. Make sure that you're focusing on mental wellness, not necessarily illness. That can help a lot reframe that conversation, right? We all have a brain and we have to take care of it. So let's start talking about mental wellness. And when illness happens, we can fix it, right? We can get to recovery really easily. So, or maybe not so easily in some cases, but recovery happens. This is not your grandparents and your great grandparents' mental illness world. We are in a much better place now to help people get into great places. And the earlier we catch things, the better. Our students are also feeling unmotivated. So you're going to see them want to gravitate toward those video games and the things that they do to check out, so whether that's TV, reading, whatever it is to check out of the world. I want to bring it back to kind of Todd's comment about that physical activity and nutrition from LaToya and Dr. O'Rourke's important pieces of health. We want to make sure that all of those connect. And we do that by really helping our kids. And sometimes that means forcing them to do things that they don't want to do, like go outside and play. You're not playing a video game for the next 20 minutes. We're putting an end to screen time. I know you love your book. Let's finish that book. And when that book is finished or when that chapter is over, it's time to get up and do something else. So just keep those kinds of things in mind. There's a lot of excellent resources. And I think I'll stop there if there's any questions and stuff.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Yeah, now we're ready to move into the Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat and we will read them out loud. And Marcy is putting in all of those things she mentioned during her part of the presentation. All right, if there are no questions right at this moment, we're gonna move on, but go ahead and put them in, and then when I'm done, we'll go back to them. So we've put together many resources, ideas, and activities to try, materials for you to share with your parents, caregivers, and children. They're all up on our website, highfiveforhealth.org. For example, here's a carousel that can be shared on Facebook or Instagram. And by the way, it's all translated into Spanish and available for a download in our toolkit. And we have 2 sizes of posters, as you can see up here, that can be printed out, posted on a wall. You can use it on your social media, on your website, and these just summarize all of the healthy habits that we're suggesting. We also have some videos available. So if we want to go to the next slide, this one summarizes the 5 healthy habits. And here is another short video focused on getting active. And here is another video about managing stress and emotions. Head over to highfiveforhealth.org to find all of these wonderful tools the campaign has to offer. There are more videos, social media graphics, and all those other resources we talked about. There's also a lot of ideas and activities. So, you say you want to try one of these topics, well, there are ways to do it in that FAQ section of the webpage. Not only are there explanations and we really tried to focus on finding free, low-cost activities that are available in communities across the Commonwealth. So it's really just a fantastic resource. I do see we have one question in the chat. Someone wants to know, how do you start identifying resources in your local communities? I don't know if anyone of our panelists wants to jump in. Marcy touched on it a little bit, and we do have a lot on our foundation website, but if anyone, Latoya, Todd, if anyone wants to jump in, Dr. O'Rourke.
So I'd say it really depends on what resources you need. Go ahead, Latoya.
Yeah, I would add to reach out to your local extension service because they're in all 120 counties. So somebody could maybe connect you to something that you need, depending on what you need.
Coming from, I don't know if you can tell by my accent, I'm not from here. But I found it very interesting coming into a small town in Eastern Kentucky has made resources difficult. And so I've realized dealing with a lot of different communities that it does change a lot based on where you are. I trained in New York, so resources up there were, it was hard to find a place to hike, but that was about it. So sitting down with my patients and saying, okay, well, what do you like to do? Do you like to read? Are you going to the library? Are you looking at the library for times to read with your children? Are you going to the local park? Are you talking with your neighbors? And really just kind of going out from there. And then I've talked to a lot of people in the community about other resources like learning how to cook with your kid. Is there a little fun thing to do with that? There's an arts alliance here in town that we try to send kids to for mental health, like just to get out with their parents. So those types of things, and just really looking at your community and finding where things can be to branch out. It just takes work and asking the questions.
Thank you all for jumping in, helping answer. I'm not seeing any more questions right now. So just in conclusion, we do have another Health for a Change webinar coming up next week. We are focusing on LGBTQ literacy as it relates to health advocacy. Go sign up. You can see the link, the address right there is where you need to go. Be sure to follow us on any social media. Reach out via email with any questions you have or ideas for future of health trainings. You can see my contact info up on your screen right now. I love to get ideas from community members to really show us what people want to learn about. So thank you again for being here today. We will send you the link for the on-demand video. Feel free to share it with others in your network. And I hope you have a good rest of the day.